Well, Martha, I was very, very happy to see your topic, and that too on the concept of evolution. Uh, because I feel in both Teilhard, Chardin, and Sri Aurobindo, the focus is on evolution itself. So your concept of evolution, you caught it beautifully. And based on evolution, theory of evolution, they develop all other theories of social evolution, individual yoga, and everything. So I'm very happy to have seen your paper, which you did so very wonderfully. And and then what is important is they're both contemporaries. I mean, you know the period.
Yes.
That was 1881. Hardly, how many? 8 years, 9 years? 9 years after Sri Aurobindo. Was it? Yeah. So this was. I was happy because you'll see. By the time we end, we will conclude of something else. I mean, why they were contemporaries and giving the same thought? Because that's what I'm interested to see. I mean, two giant figures, one from west and one from east. They are coming to very similar ideas. Well, as you must have read, we came up with this topic of Auro talks. Actually, what we call this series of talks is called Auro talks.
Mhm.
This was encouraged by the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. They have financed SACAR to say that for celebration of Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth anniversary, you do some programs to expand and disseminate Sri Aurobindo's thought. So I thought of not only publishing a book, Sri Aurobindo and the World Thinkers, but to reach out to more people. I thought of this idea of Auro Talk so that we can have a bit of a chat. And then this, when it goes worldwide, that the Sri Aurobindo spreads more. And my whole idea is to spread Sri Aurobindo's thought. So it's not a question of how you have written a paper, what is the paper. It's more to have a little bit of a conversation to make it easier for the audience to understand Sri Aurobindo. So from that angle, I wanted to say that let's have a bit of a chat about Teilhard, Chardin, and Sri Aurobindo. And we have about 20 people on the line.
Yeah.
However, so coming back to your paper, as I understand, Teilhard, Chardin, as you have quoted here, you have written, he writes of an inherent urge within the multiplicity of the manifestation to return to the oneness of its origin in Sachidananda. You see, both of them are speaking about returning to the origin. Both Sri Aurobindo and Teilhard, Chardin, speak of humanity returning to the oneness. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this oneness in Sri Aurobindo, it is, we call it the Brahman or Sachidananda or anything. But in Teilhard, Chardin, what would be that oneness named as? It's just an open oneness. Is there a specific name to that oneness or the returning point?
I haven't encountered it except the omega point, where he says that's he calls the omega point the point at which all humanity unites with the divine, and he sees that as the ultimate oneness, the omega point.
Yeah, I came to know that.
He was
Yeah, go
very
ahead.
much. He was very much. Thank you. He was very much a scientist and
Ah,
a paleontologist as well as a Catholic priest, and he had really a very much adherence to science, and he ran afoul of the Catholic Church pretty much in his time because of his views on evolution, and he couldn't accept that all humanity had derived from a single pair of parents, Adam and Eve, and that was
Yeah.
counter to his understanding as a paleontologist. He saw that people had derived from multiple sources, and he had actually discovered the Peking man, which was a version of Homo erectus in China when he was working there as a paleontologist.
Yeah. But this omega point, does it have a consciousness? Somewhere you does mention supreme consciousness. So this omega point is consciousness, some kind of consciousness?
I think it
How does it?
is. I think he conceives of it as consciousness because he sees a growth in consciousness, much as Sri Aurobindo is, and emerging in the divine, ultimately, of all humanity.
Yeah, you see, does Teilhard use the word divine at all?
Yes, he does
Or
use the word divine.
he uses God, isn't it? Or do
Yes,
we have the word divine also?
I think we have the word divine too, as referring to God, because I think he had a very broad vision of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
think
I
there
was a little.
Pardon, I just don't think there was a feminine divine component as we have in our yoga as the mother. But of course,
Yeah.
Mary is very much recognized in Catholicism as very holy and perhaps divine.
Yes, understand. I saw you have a beautiful point here. That question of oneness, he discovers from matter, that matter is one. And there you say fundamental unity of matter is revealed through the exploration and discoveries of science, and writes that this unity reveals itself in the astonishing similarity of the elements met with. So the question is, okay, we all understand matter is one. It's indubitable that matter is one. But my question would be, was it a discovery of Teilhard de Chardin that matter is one and there's a oneness? This any scientist would have said, isn't it? That all matter is one. There is a oneness in matter. But how do we say that this was a kind of a discovery by Chardin? Being a scientist is a common understanding, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. I think, he realized this at the microscopic level when he was examining cells and other organisms and or organisms in general, because every organism has cellular structure. And he just observed that, and then that reinforced his sense of oneness.
Yes. But from here, how does it go to this concept of cosmic unity or cosmic oneness? Because from this question of matter being one, the cosmos is a different thing. It's a consciousness. How does it relate this matter oneness and the cosmic oneness? Is there any link between them?
Well,
I mean, how if we,
yes, I think you can see a link in that he observed this at the cellular level and then expanded that view of it to the cosmos in general. And he was really a passionate person with a great vision and a poetic nature to some extent. And I think he would would see the world and the cosmos in terms of its great beauty and be really moved by that.
Yeah, and then of course in Sri Aurobindo, how would you put the link between matter's oneness and the cosmic consciousness? How would you make the link? He also speaks of a universal consciousness or the cosmic consciousness. So what is the link in Sri Aurobindo between matter and the universal consciousness? Is there any connection
Well,
in Sri
yes,
Aurobindo?
yes,
In
there
what
is.
ways?
Well, everything is one.
Yeah.
Everything is one element and one divine. It's all contained within the divine in Sri Aurobindo's terms. And
Yes.
there's nothing that is not divine and that's not contained within the Brahman.
Yes, it's easy to understand Sri Aurobindo because, as you said, everything is the divine. There's nothing outside. The whole cosmic, the transcendental, the individual, even matter is all one consciousness. So in Sri Aurobindo, the commonness is the consciousness, the divine consciousness or whatever you call Shakti. That is there throughout. But in Chardin, we see matter and the cosmicity. And I think I found another good word in your article where you explain about noosphere. There's another big concept of Chardin, noosphere.
Yes.
So the noosphere is also a new concept introduced by Chardin, isn't it? Teilhard the Chardin.
Yes.
What is this noosphere?
It's essentially mind, and mind in a comprehensive understanding of mind.
Or is the mind itself?
Mm-hmm.
Because I came across these three words, the omega point, noosphere, and then of course his concept of evolution. So I was intrigued by this noosphere concept. But your thing is a kind of a universal mind, is it? Noosphere?
Yes, that's how I understand it. I don't understand the concept as he extrapolated it further, but I understand that the Greek word is mind for noos, and I think he really relates it to mind.
Yes, because I have done some homework where I see noosphere being defined as a field of consciousness. He says matter as a consciousness, noosphere is a field of spiritual consciousness, and omega point, which is the ultimate uniting point, which you have written somewhere, is very close to the concept of Brahman and Satchidananda.
Yes.
Yeah, very close. It's very surprising that how close they were to each other, Chardin and Sri Aurobindo. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
then, pardon me?
Pardon, it's really remarkable. And also, Teilhard de Chardin had a concept of intensification, and that humanity coming together, as especially nowadays, which with so much rapid communication and ease of communication, that that communication intensified its growth and the growth of consciousness, and it could lead to increased harmony as well as increased conflict.
Yeah, that's. I think we can really apply to the present times what both of said is happening. Actually, we are realizing that the commonality, as you said, communication, the oneness. So, in spite of ourselves, I think we are moving towards some kind of a oneness. So, both the Chardin and Sri Aurobindo have really prophesied it correctly. But one thing which you have also noted is Chardin misses out on the individual growth, whereas Sri Aurobindo emphasizes on the individual growth of consciousness as well as the human growth, the totality.
Yes. That's right.
That is one missing link we see in Chardin, that he doesn't focus on the individual. Isn't it? Am I right?
Well, I think he does focus on the individual, but he primarily discusses the collective.
With the
And
collective.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, because you see, one cannot miss out the individual, because he also believes in the soul, the inner being, the
Yes.
evolution of the inner being. So there comes the question, which you have in fact concluded in your conclusion of the paper, that there has to be the concept of rebirth in the when there is the inner individual growth, the spiritual consciousness or the spiritual evolution. You have noted it very well that unless we believe in the spiritual evolution, or spiritual evolution means rebirth, we cannot speak of the spiritual evolution of the individual.
Yes,
In your
that's right.
conclusion, it's a very beautiful conclusion. I understood that.
Thank you.
So
I
no,
think
that
that's-
was
I
yeah.
think it's a really important point, because the soul and the individual, without rebirth, can only accomplish what they can in one lifetime.
Yes,
And
more than
it's so limited in the Christian view.
Martha. I came across one quotation which I thought I would talk to you about. Do you know that they have Teilhard Sharda has read Sri Aurobindo? Have you come across that point? He has read.
I don't know that. I'm not aware that he has.
Read
I
Sri
would,
Aurobindo.
they would be very compatible, and they could have gotten along well with each other, except for certain doctrinal points.
You see, there's one Mr. Jacques Masui was a friend of Teilhard Sharda, and he introduced Sri Aurobindo to Teilhard Sharda. In fact, gave him the book The Life Divine, The Life Divine, and asked Teilhard Sharda to read that, and Teilhard read 12 chapters, first 12 chapters of The Life Divine. So that's what hit me. I said, my God, I didn't know that. So
That's
they
wonderful.
knew. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sri Aurobindo didn't read Teilhard Sharda, but Teilhard read 12 chapters of The Life Divine. Incredible. And he made a comment saying, I have the impression that Sri Aurobindo's vision of evolution is the same as myself, but for Asia. One comment.
Yes,
It's the
because
same as myself, but for Asia.
yeah, I can see that. And certainly Sri Aurobindo was informed by the traditional literature of Asia, which was really sublime. The Upanishads and the Gita, and he had all that wonderful background, which otherwise would be lacking from a Western perspective. So he had definite advantages in that way for understanding more widely and more completely.
I wanted to understand further, why did Chardin said, but for Asia? What was the meaning when he said it's Asia? The Sri Aurobindo is meant for Asia, and I am meant for the West. Is there any clarification? It's difficult to know. But
It's difficult to know, but I think he might have meant this literature, the great literature of India, and that he did not have the benefit of that.
Yes.
But he certainly
But-
had vision.
But Martha, I will remind you, you have yourself written about this, clarifying one important point, that Teilhard Sharda did not believe in the avatars, in the 10 incarnations. That's the rebirth. So that is meant for Asia. Although we have noted that Teilhard did not believe in the question of reincarnation or rebirth, And in India, we have this Sri Aurobindo staunchly for this 10 avatars and the individual reincarnation. That means the reincarnation of the divine himself as an avatar. So that is what is lacking in the West.
It
That,
surely is.
so that is, in fact, you have written that yourself, and I said, well, Martha's caught that, but maybe she cannot connect Asia and that. But that's the point I wanted to tell you, that that's precisely why he said he is Sri Aurobindo is meant for Asia, whereas me, I'm meant for West, because he did not believe in the reincarnations of the divine. So that was very well said, because that's very important. And then there is one thing that you have also written here about his belief in Christ, because he was a Christian mystic.
Yes.
Because Christ is the central figure for him, for Teilhard Chardin. He says there are two things. One is the value of fundamentally the value of the world, and secondly, the indispensability of some Christ to give this world a consistency, a heart, and a face. Teilhard Chardin himself writes in his book, The Phenomenon of the World. What's that book? The Phenomenon of Man. So here is something again that you have discussed, but I'm just pointing it out because these are very crucial ideas. That he says the importance of the indispensability of some Christ to give this world a consistency, a heart, and a face. So he was being a Christian, he had to believe in Christ.
Yes.
His belief in Christ was fundamental for him, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So that is again, as for Sri Aurobindo, the belief in Brahman is fundamental. For Teilhard, it is the Christ.
Yes.
Christ figure is important.
Right.
But
He
then-
believed everything was contained in Christ. And so that's it. The term Christ is essentially Brahman for Teilhard Chardin.
Is Brahman.
Yes.
But Mata, we have to distinguish one point here. That is, who is Christ for Teilhard Chardin? Is he really the Christ figure? You see, if it is Christ, the man, the person who was born 2028 years back, was it that Christ? Or the idea of Christ, the personality of Christ, or the presence of Christ? This is very crucial.
Yes, I think it's the idea of Christ and the concept of Christ as the divine. And he really has a very comprehensive view of Christ. And it's extraordinary, really. I think it equates to Brahman.
Yes, because you have said about that his idea is very close to Sri Aurobindo's concept of Brahman. But I asked the question, how do you know that his idea is like that of Brahman, or Sri Aurobindo's idea of Brahman? It has got to be because your conclusions are very beautiful. I'm only adding one or two more explanations for the reader to understand. Because otherwise, an Indian Asiatic reason would say, how is Christ like Brahman? It's not Christ the man, it's the concept of the Christ.
Yes,
Because
Teilhard Chardin speaks of the pleroma. And
Paroma, yes.
That's coming together, and I think it's distinct from the omega point, and it's a fullness of experience of the Christ, which is really the fullness of Brahman.
Yes.
My understanding it is.
Yeah, so that was another clarity I wanted to add to your paper, because you see you have written beautifully. So some points needed a little more explanation. And so that was one thing about Christ. And Of course, I was wanting to see in your paper one paragraph somewhere. Of course, you have written about the supermind and omega point. Are they the same? What is a supermind and the ultra human? You call it. He calls it the ultra human.
Yes.
We call it the superman. Teilhard the Chardin calls it ultra human. So they are also thinking of a new personality, isn't it? A new species. Would you
Yes, he
say that?
is. Yes, absolutely. Because as a paleontologist, he thought that he believed that humanity needed to progress further, or
Ah,
it would decline, because he's observed that in so many species. And progressing further, he called the ultra-human, and it included a transformation of consciousness or growth of consciousness. I don't
yes.
think he spoke in terms of transformation, but he certainly did speak in terms of growth of consciousness.
Growth of consciousness.
And he
Yes.
believed we should become another range of personality and really reach beyond what we have now.
Mm-hmm. In fact, to support you, I'll give you a quotation from Teilhard de Chardin, who says, "Another mankind must inevitably emerge from this vision, one of which we have as yet no idea." He speaks of another mankind. What you have said,
Yes.
progress. So it's a very important phrase. This is another mankind will come about, of which we have no idea as yet.
Mm-hmm.
But there are hints, you see, that's what I was amazed to see, that how close is Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo speaks of Superman, he speaks of another human mankind. But what you explained is right. This is an evolution of consciousness which will bring about. In Sri Aurobindo, the concept is different. It's not the same thing as they are saying. Another Superman will come again by the consciousness, but as an evolutionary species, a new species is being awaited. That's the Superman. So again, you see, one to one, we see similarities: evolution, Christ, Omega Point, Superman. The similarities are incredible. I mean, very shocking, in fact, to see somebody so close to Sri Aurobindo. And the same period, 18, whatever I said, 1881 or something, more or less the same time. And
Yes.
so there is something to wonder, how do you say this is just a coincidence that both the great speakers, great people thought of the same thing? Because remember, you have got a beautiful conclusion, and I'm basing myself a lot on your conclusion because you have done a marvelous conclusion there. I don't know if you remember that, but your conclusion is a very eye opener, very beautiful eye opener. You see, Sri Aurobindo also says about the higher form of being on earth, and Teilhard de Chardin also says that. But still, there is a difference. Can you find out what is the difference between Sri Aurobindo and Teilhard? You have more noted here. What is the difference that maybe, although they are speaking of the same things, but yet there's a difference?
Yes, I think
What?
there is certainly a distinction that can be made, because Sri Aurobindo detailed much more the projection that he had for the Superman, for the superhuman, and the supermind. And he went into detailed stages of
Yeah.
consciousness, states of being,
Yes.
much more extensively than Teilhard de Chardin did, because I don't find in his writing any sense of levels of consciousness, just an increased consciousness and increased being. And we can't know how much he himself realized of this
Exactly.
consciousness. And we know for a fact that Sri Aurobindo realized and experienced fully all these higher states of consciousness. So that's certainly a distinction.
That's very interesting, and in fact, the most important thing, because the Western thinkers or readers of Teilhard Chardin may, because you know Sri Aurobindo well, you are able to bring out the difference and the reality of Sri Aurobindo's spiritual experience. Whereas many readers would say, what's the difference between Teilhard Chardin and Sri Aurobindo? They spoke of the same thing. But they would not know the experiential aspect of Sri Aurobindo, the sadhana that he did, and as I said rightly, stage by stage, the level of consciousness that he conquered, and he went to the level of the Superman. So it's not a mental kind of a prognosis and say this will be the future, like Teilhard Chardin says, as by evolution there will be another mankind. It's more a mental projection. But whereas with Sri Aurobindo, it was the consciousness. He himself realized that state. So
Yes.
there, I think you have mentioned that, but maybe a little more elaboration would do well. The last paragraph, the differentiation that you brought in by this question of two things you have said, Sri Aurobindo's concept of reincarnation and Sri Aurobindo's spiritual realization. These are the most crucial differences. If that is not brought out, people may think, well, the two different philosophers, two different languages, but they spoke the same thing. But that is where I think in your paper, I may request you to add a couple of more paragraphs to emphasize this difference. Otherwise, it's too close, the similarities of ideas, but the basis of these similarities is different. One is experience, the other is more a kind of a mental cognition or a mental projection.
Mental projection, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be.
That's really important to emphasize, and you can't emphasize it too much, really, because Sri Aurobindo's experience and his sadhana and his realizations were so full and immediate, and there's no comparison, really.
Yeah, that's the only suggestion I had about your paper, that because in the beginning when I was reading, I said so many similarities, and yet I know there's something Sri Aurobindo, as you said rightly, the Sri Aurobindo exceeds Teilhard Chardin. So that word exceed needs to be a little more emphasized. In what way does they exceed? So that's the last paragraph in our article. That would be very nice if you could add one more paragraph, bringing it out, reinforcing Sri Aurobindo's aspect of sadhana and experience. Yeah? That would be nice, but I think I would definitely, otherwise, it's a beautiful chapter. There's one more thing I wanted to discuss with you, very crucial though. You have read, I'm sure, K.D. Setna's article on Teilhard Chardin and Sri Aurobindo.
Yes.
Have you? Yeah, that's a very important article. All of us have read this in my own student days. Because when I came to know about Teilhard Chardin, K.D. Setna was a wonderful critic,
Yes.
But I'll read out one line from K.D. Setna. That's, Amal Kiran, K.D.
Yeah.
Setna.
I knew him personally. I was privileged to know him personally.
Yeah, you've seen. He says that Teilhard Chardin was inspired in his thought by the same supramental consciousness which had had a global impact on the earth consciousness in modern times. ultimately giving a general impulse for evolutionary theories in connection with scientific thought. Have you got it? Shall I read it again? I'll read
I've
it
got
again.
Thank you.
K.D. Setna assumes that Teilhard was inspired in his thought by the same supramental consciousness which has had a global impact on the earth consciousness in modern times, ultimately giving a general impulse for evolutionary theories in connection with scientific thought. I mean, it's a very nice conclusion to say the supramental consciousness was there around, because he wrote it in 1940s about his book of Phenomenon of Man, and Sri Aurobindo had already written The Life Divine in 1915 to 1920. So, although the supramental consciousness had not descended by then, but it was there somewhere. Because
It
Sri
was
Aurobindo,
It was
so
present
I
in
don't.
the atmosphere.
But my frank question to you, Martha, is: would you agree with this conclusion of Amal Kiran that there was an impact of the supramental consciousness on Teilhard Sharda also, or maybe it was guiding Teilhard Sharda to giving him theory of evolution from the point of view of matter, whereas Sri Aurobindo brought it from the point of view of spirit. Should we agree with that, Amal Kiran, or can we accept him or not?
I think generally we can accept that because the supramental consciousness does not have an exact time frame, and when Teilhard de Chardin wrote his book, The Phenomenon of Man, and other books, does not have to coincide with the dates that Sri Aurobindo was writing. But it is extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. And I think Amal K.D. Setna makes a good parallel there. Incidentally, K.D. Setna, Amal Kiran, whom I knew as a friend, he came to Sri Aurobindo the same way that I did, through a newspaper.
Oh, that's interesting.
He told me the story. I think you must know it.
Yes.
That he was in Bombay and unwrapped a package of chapels, and that there was Sri Aurobindo.
Did you tell him your story?
I did.
How? You did.
It was close to my birthday, which was very meaningful. And I read in the Washington Post. It was 1972. I read in the Washington Post an issue close to my birthday, which had a double-page spread on the Ashram and Auroville. And it was very fortunate. Great blessing.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and this theory, although many may not accept what Amal Kiran has concluded, but I tend to believe that Amal Kiran is right to presume that there is a supramental consciousness influence. It has influenced somebody on the spiritual level, that's Sri Aurobindo, somebody on the material matter level, Teilhard Sharda, the scientist. Because it's important that science also accepts this oneness of the world and then the moving towards an omega point, that there is a collective destiny for all of mankind. It's not a destruction, but there is a positive. A scientist telling is important. You see, what the world believes the scientist as much. And also that something will manifest, because if the scientist, for him, matter is the ultimate thing. If he, the scientist, also sees that the world will be one on the material, physical level, that's a very important conclusion, which can be given only by a supramental consciousness, not a mental consciousness. So arguing this way, I do understand why Amal Kiran came up with that conclusion. And a little thing outside your conversation, I've been reading an article by somebody on Madame Montessori. Madame Montessori, that's the educationist. Heard of her? Montessori, her ideas of education and Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's ideas of education are very close to each other again.
Yes, they are.
I mean, I've been reading that a little bit, incredibly close. I mean, the ideas of the child being centered, the soul education, and all that. So again, I wondered, how is it that two people are speaking of the same thing? And I, at that time, came to the conclusion there is one common consciousness which is working on Madame Montessori or Madame Mera Alpha Saya. So both have received the same consciousness. So that way I understood what Amal Kiran is saying is true, that there is a cosmic consciousness that was descending. Those of us, be it in the West or the East, those of us who are ready or open-minded, receive the same message, be it in education or be it in philosophy of evolution. It's the same supermental consciousnness.
Yeah.
So I was very, very happy to hear that. I mean, what I was believing, Amal Kiran kind of confirmed that. Say, yes, it's the super mind which is coming down. And that's how, Martha, in fact, what all of you have written, I mean, 20 persons have contributed to this book, Sri Aurobindo and the World Thinkers. And each one of you, we have chosen a different thinker, speaker, poet, dramatist. And I see so beautifully the spreading of Sri Aurobindo's thought in the world. People may not even know him. Some people may know him, some have not even heard. But at the thought level, many people have caught Sri Aurobindo. And that is what the mother had, isn't it?
Yes, it's a contagion, and it's really vast. It's resonating.
Mother had written in 1972 that in 50 years, what's the word? Humanity? Mother wrote in a message that in 50 years, humanity will be absorbed by the thought of Sri Aurobindo. Those of us who are open.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So if you can find that message, there immediately the message of the mother came to my mind. My God, so many world thinkers have caught Sri Aurobindo. And she said, because we are celebrating Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth anniversary last year, so this message became very prominent that the world around people, not only sadhaks and disciples, but thinkers, poets, socialists, they're also absorbed because Sri Aurobindo's thought is there everywhere. Sri Aurobindo, in fact, in one place, not in the Life Divine, but in some place, he says that first is trying to transform the thinking of man, even before he transformed the physical and the vital. He says this new idea or concept of the supermind must be received by the mind of man. So he says that I'm preparing the mind of man to prepare to receive the to supermind. And that is how I see now. I feel that my little effort in bringing out this book, Sri Aurobindo and the World Thinkers, is on the right lines to see how Sri Aurobindo is being received all over the world. So I'm very grateful to all of you. So beautiful it is coming out to be.
That's really a grace. It's really wonderful.
Here is a message I'll read out from the mother. It was, yes, in 50 years, the whole world, all the receptive section of humanity I'm not saying intellectual. I'm saying receptive. All the receptive section of the world will be embraced, not embraced, absorbed in the power of Sri Aurobindo's thought. Look at that. I mean, I said maybe this book will only, explain what Sri Aurobindo's message is. That the receptive section of the world will be absorbed in the power of Sri Aurobindo's thought. And this he wrote in 1972, exactly 50 years later. What we see, this is what we see in the world. So our book is timely and so beautiful is to see that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
true.
Mata. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was, yeah.
It's a privilege
So
to talk to you.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you, would you like to add a few paragraphs and then send it back to me, this article, or
Oh,
what do
I
you feel?
will. I will.
Nice, because the very important thinkers and the difference that you have brought out would be very necessary. Otherwise, there could be some kind of a confusion, especially between the Western thinkers and Indian thinkers. Western
Yes.
thinkers, Teilhard is better, we would say Sri Aurobindo is better. You please bring out that little difference, another couple of.
I will do that. I will do that. Maybe
And
just
also, yeah, you can do that.
yes.
Yeah. There's one more. Our suggestion is about the Christ concept. Please clarify a little bit. It's not the physical Christ. It's the concept, the presence of the Christ consciousness, which is he's speaking of. Otherwise, it will be too much of a Christian philosophy. Christ is for Teilhard, Christ is a presence of the divine.
Yes, that's
And
right.
that is everywhere. So this also you need to elaborate a little bit somewhere.
Okay, I will do that.
That one and sure with the difference, then it will become a little more comprehensive and complete.
That's good. Those are good recommendations, and I'll certainly follow through.
Right.
It's been a real pleasure to talk with you this morning.
It has been so lovely. I mean, your article has been inspiring, so I went back to some other books of Teilhard Chardin, and then I found that it's incredible. And then K.D. Setna's conclusion, I really liked it very much because that is how I begin to look at the world now. That mothers, she said, Sri Aurobindo's thought. People will be absorbed by Sri Aurobindo's thought more than his consciousness. And because I had read Sri Aurobindo says, I'm preparing the human mind to receive the new thought, the new thinking. So all this I got together. Right, Mata? Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Goodbye.